First Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 22, verse 1. So David left Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam. Soon his brothers and all his other relatives joined him there, verse 2. Then others began coming, men who were in trouble or in debt or were just discontented, until David was the captain of about 400 men. Verse 3. Later David went to Mizpah, or Mizpeh, in Moab, which means washpot, where he asked the king, please allow my father and mother to live here with you until I know what God is going to do for me. Verse 4. So David's parents stayed in Moab with the king during the entire time David was living in his stronghold. One day, verse 5, the prophet Gad told David, leave the stronghold and return to the land of Judah. So David went to the forest of Hereth. Verse 6, the news of his arrival in Judah soon reached Saul. At the time, the king was sitting beneath the tamarisk tree on the hill of Gibeah, holding his spear and surrounded by his officers. Listen here, verse 7, you men of Benjamin. Saul shouted to his officers when he heard the news, has that son of Jesse promised every one of you fields and vineyards? Has he promised to make you all generals and captains in his army? Verse 8, is that why you've conspired against me? For not one of you told me when my own son made a solemn pact with the son of Jesse, you're not even sorry for me? Think of it, my own son encouraging him to kill me, as he is trying to do this very day. Johnny, let me know if we're still good. Verse 9, then Doeg, the Edomite, who was standing there with Saul's men, spoke up. When I was at Nob, he said, I saw the son of Jesse talking to the priest, Elimelech, son of Ahitub, Ahitub, verse 10. Ahimelech consulted the Lord for him. Then he gave him food and the sword of Goliath the Philistine, verse 11. King Saul immediately sent for Ahimelech and all his family who served as priest at Nob, verse 12. When they arrived, Saul shouted at him, listen to me, you son of Ahitub. What is it? My king, Elimelech, boy, some names, I'll tell you what. What is it? Elimelech asked. Why have you and the son of Jesse conspired against me? Saul demanded. Why did you give him food and a sword? Why have you consulted God for him? Why have you encouraged him to kill me? And he's trying to do this very day. That's correct. Verse 14. Good. Everything's good. Verse 14. But sir, Ahimelech replied, is anyone among all your servants as faithful as David, your son-in-law? Is anyone among your servants as faithful as David, your son-in-law? That's what he's saying. Why? He is the captain of your bodyguard and a highly honored member of your household. Verse 15. This was certainly not the first time I had consulted God for him. May the king not accuse me and my family in this matter, for I knew nothing at all of any plot against you. Verse 16. You will surely die, Ahimelech, along with your entire family, the king shouted. You'll surely die. Verse 17. And he ordered his bodyguards, kill these priests of the Lord, for they are allies and conspirators with David. They knew he was running away from me, but they didn't tell me. But Saul's men refused to kill the Lord's priests. Verse 18. Then the king said, Doeg, you do it. So Doeg the Edomite turned on them and he killed them that day. 85 priests in all, still wearing their priestly garments. Verse 19. Then he went to Nob, the town of the priests, and killed the priests' families, men and women, children and babies, and all the cattle, donkeys, sheep, and goats. Verse 20. Only Abiathar, one of the sons of Ahimelech, escaped and fled to David. Verse 21. When he told David that Saul had killed the priests of the Lord, David exclaimed, I knew it! When I saw Doeg the Edomite there that day, I knew he was sure to tell Saul, now I have caused the death of all your family, all your father's family. Verse 23, stay here with me. And don't be afraid, I will protect you with my own life, for the same person wants to kill us both. We've officially made it through chapter 22, all the way. Moving on to chapter 23. David saves the city of Keilah. Verse 1, one day news came to David that the Philistines were at Keilah, stealing grain from the threshing floors. Verse 2, David asked the Lord, should I go and attack them? Yes, go and save Keilah, the Lord told him. Capital Lord, Yahweh, L-O-R-D, capitalized. Verse 3, but David's men said, we're afraid even here in Judah. We certainly don't want to go to Keilah to fight the whole Philistine army. So David asked the Lord again, and again the Lord replied, go down to Keilah, for I will help you conquer the Philistines. Verse 5. So David and his men went to Keilah. They slaughtered the Philistines and took all the livestock and rescued the people of Keilah. Now when Abathar, not Avatar, but Abathar, son of Elimelech, Ahimelech fled to David at Keilah. He brought the ephod with him. That's the covering that had the 12 stones and the breastplate. It was the ephod was on the garment that the priestly robes, that the garments that they wore, like Aaron, priestly Aaron. Verse 7, Saul, this is not the Saul from the book of Acts who becomes Paul. This is Saul, the bad king. Saul, this is where the next Saul in Acts actually gets his name from this Saul, actually. Saul soon learned that David was at Keilah. Good, he exclaimed. We've got him now. God has handed him over to me, for he has trapped himself in a walled town. Verse 8. So Saul mobilized his entire army to march to Keilah and besiege David and his men. Verse 9. But David learned of Saul's plan and told Abiathar, the priest, to bring the ephod and ask the Lord what he should do. Verse 10, Then David prayed, O Lord, God of Israel, I have heard that Saul is planning to come and destroy Keilah because I'm here. Will the leaders of Keilah, or whatever, betray me to him? And will Saul actually come as I have heard? O Lord, God of Israel, please tell me. And the Lord said, He will come. Verse 12, Again David asked, Will the leaders of Keilah betray me and my men to Saul? And the Lord replied, Yes, they will betray you. So David and his men, about 600 of them now, left Keilah or whatever, and began roaming the countryside. Word soon reached Saul that David had escaped, so he didn't go to Keilah after all. Verse 14, David now stayed in the strongholds of the wilderness and in the hill country of Ziph. Saul hunted him day after day, but God didn't let Saul find him. Saul pursues David in verse 15. One day near Horesh, David received the news that Saul was on the way to Ziph to search for him and kill him. Verse 16. Jonathan went to find David and encouraged him to stay strong in his faith in God. That sounds like today. Don't be afraid, verse 17. Jonathan reassured him. My father will never find you. You're going to be the king of Israel, and I will be next to you, as my father, Saul, is well aware. So the two of them renewed their solemn pact before the Lord. Then Jonathan returned home while David stayed at Horesh. Verse 19. But now the men of Ziph went to Saul in Gibeah and betrayed David to him. We know where David is hiding, they said. He is in the strongholds of Horesh on the hill of Hakilah, which is in the southern part of Jeshimon. Verse 20. Come down whenever you're ready, O king, and we will catch him and hand him over to you. Verse 21. The Lord bless you, Saul said. At last someone's concerned about me. Go and check again to be sure of where he's staying and who has seen him there, for I know that he is very crafty. Verse 23. Just let me know if there's any audio issues, Johnny. Audio issues. Verse 23. Discover his hiding places and come back when you're sure. Then I'll go with you. And if he is in the area at all, I'll track him down, even if I have to search every hiding place in Judah. Verse 24. So the men of Ziph returned home ahead of Saul. Meanwhile, David and his men had moved into the wilderness of Maon in the Arabah Valley south of Jeshimon. Verse 25. When David heard that Saul and his men were searching for him, he went even farther into the wilderness to the great rock, and he remained there in the wilderness of Maon. But Saul kept after him in the wilderness. Verse 26. Saul and David were now on the opposite sides of a mountain, just as Saul and his men began to close in on David and his men. Verse 27. An urgent message reached Saul that the Philistines were raiding Israel again. Verse 28. So Saul quit chasing David and returned to fight the Philistines. Ever since that time, the place where David was camped has been called the Rock of Escape. Verse 29, 1 Samuel 23, verse 29. David then went to live, a lot of us, no more us. David then went to live in the strongholds. David then went to live in the strongholds of En-Gedi. Chapter 24, David spares Saul's life. 1 Samuel chapter 24, verse 1. After Saul returned from fighting the Philistines, he was told that David had gone into the wilderness of En-Gedi. Verse 2. So Saul chose 3,000 elite troops. There's that number 3,000 again for like the 7th or 8th time. So Saul chose 3,000 elite troops from all of Israel and went to search for David and his men near the rocks of the wild goats. Verse 3. At the place where the road passes some sheepfolds, Saul went into a cave to relieve himself. But as it happened, David and his men were hiding further back in that very cave. Verse 4. Now's your opportunity, David's men whispered to him. Today the Lord is telling you, I will certainly put your enemy into your power to do as you wish. So David crept forward and cut off a piece of the hem of Saul's robe. Now there's prophecy here. There's the Lord's showing us something by cutting off, letting him know, listen, I could have killed you if I wanted to. And the hem of the robe has to do with their priestly garments and their worship. So that's letting him know something. His royalty is about to go away. That's letting him know several things, actually. David crept forward and cut off a piece of the hem of Saul's robe. That's good. Verse 5. But then David's conscience began bothering him because he had cut Saul's robe. Verse 6. He said to his men, the Lord forbid that I should do this to my lord the king, not the capital Lord. They would say, hey, Lord, my Lord, meaning their king. Or so they called him that, and not in the sense of Lord, the owner, like our Lord, so it's not capitalized. So I'll go ahead and just, he said to the men, the Lord forbid that I should do this to my Lord. So the capital Lord forbid that he should do it to the lowercase Lord, referring to Saul, the king. I shouldn't attack the Lord's anointed one, for the Lord himself has chosen him. Verse 7. So David restrained his men and did not let them kill Saul. After Saul had left the cave and gone on his way, David came out and shouted after him, my Lord is king. And when Saul looked around, David bowed low before him. Verse 9. Then he shouted to Saul, why do you listen to the people who say I'm trying to harm you? I would yell louder, but I have family sleeping. Verse 10, this very day you can see with your own eyes it isn't true, for the Lord placed you at my mercy back there in the cave. Some of my men told me to kill you, but I spared you. For I said, I will never harm the king. He is the Lord's anointed one. That's obedience. Verse 11, look, my father, at what I have in my hand. It's a piece of the hem of your robe. I cut it off, but I didn't kill you. This proves that I am not trying to harm you and that I have not sinned against you, even though you have been hunting me to kill me. So look at this. Saul's been trying to kill David, his predecessor, but David lets him know, hey, I could have killed you, but I didn't. I'm trying to get your respect. I'm not trying to hurt you. It reminds me of the book of Eli when Denzel Washington took the gun away from him to let him know that he could easily have taken the gun and killed him, but he gives it back. So he's not a bad guy. He's letting you know, I'm not a bad guy, but I have control of you if I want to. But I'm not taking it. So verse 12, that's pretty gangster, actually. Verse 12, may the Lord judge between us. Perhaps the Lord will punish you for what you're trying to do to me, but I will never harm you. Verse 13, as the old proverb says, from evil people come evil deeds, so you can be sure I will never harm you. Verse 14, who is and that should go today. Think about what he just said. Who is the king of Israel trying to catch anyway? Should he spend his time chasing one who is as worthless as a dead dog or a single flea? May the Lord therefore judge which of us is right and punish the guilty one. He is my advocate, and he will rescue me from your power. Verse 16, when David had finished speaking, Saul called back, is that really you, my son David? Then he began to cry. Verse 17, so he had conviction, it looks like. That's what happened. And he said to David, you are a better man than I am, for you have repaid me good for evil. God, that's a parallel. You're supposed to, listen, when somebody does you wrong, turn the other cheek. We're supposed to repay bad with good. That's not natural in our sense. That's what Jesus did, though. We say, well, somebody did us wrong, we're going to get them back. Jesus says not to do that because you're not going to witness to them. If you love them, it's not about whether or not they deserve your forgiveness or you being nice. What it's about is you representing the kingdom and you're being loving no matter what they do to you. It's not about you. That's why the Bible says in Timothy, I'm paraphrasing, don't be doing worldly battles when you're at war with heaven. I mean, when you're doing war in the kingdom. Don't mess around and dabble with things on earth. Don't get mixed up in earthly affairs. Look, I always say this. If you act like if you're publicly saying I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, I'm part of this thing called Christian, I'm trying to do the right thing, listen, I say this, don't wear my patch acting like a fool, making Christianity look bad because you're causing the kingdom to fall. You're causing, not to fall, but you're causing destruction in the kingdom. So take off my patch. This is what he's saying, verse 17. And he said, David, you're a better man than I am, for you've repaid me good with evil. That's what I'm talking about, guys. Verse 18, 1 Samuel 24:18. Yes, you have been amazingly kind to me today, for when the Lord put me in a place where you could have killed me, you didn't do it. That's what Saul said. Verse 19, who also let his army get away when he had him in his power? May the Lord reward you well for the kindness you've shown me today. See what happens? Doing the right thing even when you don't want to can change the world. The leader changed his mind. Verse 20, and now I realize that you're surely going to be king. See that? Do you guys see what happened? Repay bad with good, and good happens. Look at Joseph being thrown in the well by his brothers, and then when famine hit, they came to Egypt when Joseph was second to Pharaoh. Joseph gave them what they wanted, even though he could have cursed them. He didn't. It's the same testament, man. Verse 20, and now I realize that you're surely going to be king, and that the kingdom of Israel will flourish under your rule. Now swear to me that by the Lord, that when that happens, you will not just kill my family and destroy my line of descendants. Verse 22, so David promised this to Saul with an oath. Then Saul went home, but David and his men went back to their stronghold. Wow, verse 25, chapter 25, the death of Samuel, and then we're going to move on. Zevia is good stuff, no sugar. Okay, 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 1. Now Samuel died. I love how he says, now Samuel died. There's reasons why God outlines stuff like that. Now Samuel died, and all Israel gathered for his funeral. They buried him at his house in Ramah. Then David moved down to the wilderness of Maon. Verse 2. There was a wealthy man from Maon who owned property near the town of Carmel. He had 3,000 sheep. There's that 3,000 number again. And 1,000 goats. And it was sheep shearing time. Underline that. Verse 3. This man's name was Nabal, and his wife Abigail was a sensible and beautiful woman. And his wife, Abigail was a sensible and beautiful woman. But Nabal, a descendant of Caleb, was crude and mean in all his dealings. Verse 4, you know people like that. Verse 4, those are the people that are hard to love. When David heard that Nabal was shearing his sheep, verse 5, he sent 10 of his young men to Carmel with this message for Nabal. Peace and prosperity to you, your family, and everything you own. I am told that it is sheep shearing time. While your shepherds stayed among us near Carmel, we never harmed them, and nothing was ever stolen from them. Verse 8, ask your own men, and they will tell you this is true. So would you be kind to us since we have come at a time of celebration? Please share any provisions you might have on hand with us and with your friend David. Verse 9, David's young men gave this message to Nabal in David's name, and they waited for a reply. Verse 10, who is this fellow David? Nabal sneered to the young men. Who does this son of Jesse think he is? There are a lot. My goodness, the son of David. Jesus is called the son of David. Just keep that in mind. Who does the son of Jesse think he is? Man, youngest of 8. My goodness. There are lots of servants these days who run away from their masters. Verse 11. Should I take my bread and my water and my meat that I have slaughtered for my shears and give it to a band of outlaws who come from who knows where? So David's young men returned and told him what Nabal had said. Verse 13. Get your swords, was David's reply, and as he strapped on his own. Then 400 men started off with David, and 200 remained behind to guard their equipment. Meanwhile, this is good, you guys. Meanwhile, one of Nabal's servants went to Abigail and told her, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, but he screamed insults at them. Verse 15, these men have been very good to us, and we never suffered any harm from them. Nothing was stolen from us the whole time they were with us. Verse 16, in fact, day and night they were like a wall of protection to us and the sheep. You need to know this and figure out what to do, for there is going to be trouble for our master and his whole family. He's so ill-tempered that no one can even talk to him. Abigail wasted no time. She quickly gathered 200 loaves of bread. We're alone. That's okay, though. She quickly gathered 200 loaves of bread, 2 wineskins full of wine, 5 sheep that had been slaughtered, nearly a bushel of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 fig cakes. Strange combination. She packed them on donkeys and said to her servants, go on ahead. I'll follow you shortly. But she didn't tell her husband, Nabal, what she was doing. Verse 20, as she was riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, she saw David and his men coming towards her. David had just been saying, a lot of good I did to help this fellow. We protected his flocks in the wilderness, and nothing he owned was lost or stolen, but he has repaid me evil for good. May God strike me and kill me if even one of his household is still alive tomorrow morning. Verse 23, when Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed low before him. Verse 24, she fell at his feet and said, I accept all blame in this matter, my lord. Please listen to what I have to say. I know Nabal is a wicked and ill-tempered man. Please don't pay any attention to him. He's a fool, just as his name suggests. But I never even saw the young men you sent. Now, my lord, as surely as the Lord lives and your and you yourself live, since the Lord has kept you from murdering and taken vengeance into your own hands. Let all your enemies and those who try to harm you, be as cursed as Nabal is. Verse 27. And here is a present that I, your servant, have brought to you and your young men. Please forgive me if I have offended you in any way. The Lord will surely reward you with a lasting dynasty, for you are fighting the Lord's battles, and you have not done wrong throughout your entire life. Verse 29. Even when you're chased by those who seek to kill you, your life is safe in the care of the Lord your God, secure in His treasure pouch. But the lives of your enemies, will disappear like stones from a sling. Ooh, the sling. That's what David does. He uses a sling. He's a slinger, the rock slinger, just like he hit Goliath in the temple, and it kind of got embedded deep in his head. That's interesting. Verse 31. Don't let this be a blemish in your record. Then your conscience won't have to bear staggering burden of needless bloodshed and vengeance. And when the Lord has done these great things to you, please remember me, your servant. David replied to Abigail, praise the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you to meet me today. Verse 33. Thank God for your good sense. Bless you for keeping me from murder and from carrying out vengeance with my own hands. For I swear by the Lord, the God of Israel, who has kept me from hurting you, that if you had not hurried out to meet me, not one of Nabal's men would still be alive tomorrow morning. Then David, verse 35, accepted her present and told her, return home in peace. I have heard what you said. We will not kill your husband. Verse 36, when Abigail arrived home, she found that Nabal was throwing a big party and was celebrating like a king. He was very drunk, so she didn't tell him anything about her meeting with David until dawn the next day. In the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him what had happened. As a result, he had a stroke, and he lay paralyzed on his bed like a stone. Might want to look that one up. That's a good one. About 10 days later, the Lord struck him, and he died. Wow. Verse 39, when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, praise the Lord, who has avenged the insult I received from Nabal and who's kept me from doing it myself. Nabal has received the punishment for his sin. Then David sent messengers to Abigail to ask her to become his wife. Verse 40. When the messengers arrived at Carmel, they told Abigail, David has sent us to take you back to marry him. Verse 41. She bowed low to the ground and responded, I, your servant, would be happy to marry David. I would even be willing to become a slave, washing the feet of his servants. Wow, that's what I'm talking about. I don't not support slavery. I'm just saying he was loyal. That's what I mean. Quickly getting ready, she took along 5 of her servant girls as attendants, mounted her donkey, and went with David's messengers, and she became his wife. So she became his wife. David also married Ahinoam from Jezreel, making both of them his wives. Saul, meanwhile, had given his daughter Michal, David's wife, to a man from Gallim, named Palti, son of Laish. Boy, they have some names in that country, let me tell you. So this next part is David sparing Saul again, where he could have obviously done anything he wanted to him. Verse 1, 1 Samuel chapter 26, verse 1. Now some men from Ziph came to Saul at Gibeah to tell him, David is hiding on the hill of Hakilah, which overlooks Jeshimon. Verse 2, so Saul took 3,000, there it is again, of Israel's elite troops and went to hunt him down in the wilderness of Ziph. Saul camped along the road beside the hill of Hakilah near Jeshimon, where David was hiding. When David learned that Saul had come after him into the wilderness, he sent out spies to verify the report of Saul's arrival. David slipped over to Saul's camp one night to look around. Saul and Abner, son of Ner, the commander of his army, were sleeping inside a ring formed by the slumbering warriors. So they had warriors guarding around them. Almost like a sheep's gate. It's very interesting. Verse 6. Who will volunteer to go in there with me? David asked Ahimelech to the Hittite and Abishai, son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother. I'll go with you, Abishai replied. Verse 7. So David and Abishai went right into Saul's camp and found him asleep with his spear stuck in the ground beside his head. Abner and the soldiers were lying asleep around him. Verse 8. God has surely handed your enemy over to you this time. Abishai whispered to David, let me pin him to the ground with one thrust of the spear. I won't need to strike him. I won't need to strike twice. Like lightning. Verse 9. No, David said, don't kill him, for who can remain innocent after attacking the Lord's anointed one? Verse 10. Surely the Lord will strike Saul down someday, or he will die of old age in a battle. The Lord forbid that I should kill the one he has anointed, but take his spear and that jug of water beside his head, and then let's go out of here. Verse 12. So David took the spear and jug of water that were near Saul's head. Then he and Abishai got away without anyone seeing them or even waking up, because the Lord had put Saul's men into a deep sleep. That's interesting right there. Verse 13. David climbed the hill opposite the camp until he was at a safe distance. Verse 14. Then he shouted down to the soldiers, to Abner, son of Ner, "Wake up, Abner!" "Who is it?" Abner demanded. Verse 15. "Well, Abner, you're a great man, aren't you?" David taunted. Where in all Israel is there anyone as mighty? See, why haven't you guarded your master the king when someone came to kill him? Verse 16. This isn't good at all. I swear by the Lord that you and your men deserve to die because you failed to protect your master, the Lord's anointed. Look around. Where are the king's spears? Where are the king's spear and jug of water that were beside his head? Verse 17. Saul recognized David's voice and called out, "Is that you, my son David?" And David replied, "Yes, my lord the king. Why are you chasing me? What have I done? What is my crime? But now let my lord the king listen to his servant. If the Lord has stirred you up against me, then let him accept my offering. But if this is simply a human scheme, then may those involved be cursed by the Lord, for they have driven me from my home, so I can no longer live among the Lord's people. And they have said, 'Go, worship pagan gods.'" Verse 20. Must I die on foreign soil, far from the presence of the Lord? Why has the king of Israel come out to search for a single flea? Why does he hunt me down like a partridge on the mountains? Then Saul confessed, "I've sinned. Come back home, my son, and I will no longer try to harm you, for you valued my life today. I have been a fool and very, very wrong." Okay, verse 22. Moving on. Hopefully that's Johnny. He's back. "Here's your spear, O king," David replied. "Let one of your young men come over and get it." Verse 23. "The Lord gives his own reward for doing good and for being loyal. And I refuse to kill you even when the Lord placed you in my power, for you are the Lord's anointed one." Verse 24. "Now may the Lord value my life, even as I have valued yours today. May he rescue me from all my troubles." Verse 25. And Saul said to David, "Blessings on you, my son. You will do many heroic deeds, and you will surely succeed." Then David went away, and Saul returned home. That's good right there. Chapter 27, David flees to the Philistines. Remember, he took out Goliath, who was one of the big Philistines, 9 feet tall, roughly. 1 Samuel chapter 27, verse 1. But David kept thinking to himself. That's right. Someday Saul's going to get me. The best thing I can do is escape to the Philistines. Then Saul will stop hunting for me in Israelite territory, and I will finally be safe. Verse 2. So David took his 600 men and went over and joined Achish, son of Maoch, the king of Gath. Verse 3. David and his men and their families settled there with Achish and Gath. David brought his 2 wives along with him, Ahinoam from Jezreel, and Abigail, Nabal's widow, from Carmel. Verse 4. Word soon reached Saul that David had fled to Gath, so he stopped hunting for him. One day David said to Achish, if it is all right with you, we would rather live in one of the country towns instead of here in the royal city. So Achish gave him the town of Ziklag, which still belongs to the kings of Judah to this day. Verse 7. And they lived there among the Philistines for a year and 4 months. Verse 8. David and his men spent their time raiding the Geshurites, the Girzites, and the Amalekites, people who had lived near Shur, toward the land of Egypt since ancient times. David did not leave one person alive in the villages he attacked. He took the sheep, goats, cattle, donkeys, camels, and clothing before returning home to see King Achish. Verse 10. Where did you make your raid today? Achish would ask. And David would reply, against the south of Judah, the Jerahmeelites and the Kenites. Verse 11. No one was left alive to come to Gath and tell where he had really been. This happened again and again while he was living among the Philistines. Verse 12. Achish believed David and thought to himself, by now the people of Israel must hate him bitterly. Now he will have to stay here and serve me forever. Chapter 28. We're moving right along now. Saul and the medium of Endor. Verse 1. 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 1. About that time, the Philistines mustered their armies for another war with Israel. King Achish told David, "You and your men will be expected to join me in battle." Verse 2. "Very well," David agreed. "Now you will see for yourself what we can do." Then Achish told David, "I will make you a personal bodyguard for life." Meanwhile, Samuel had died, and all Israel had mourned for him. He was buried in Ramah, his hometown. And Saul had banned from the land of Israel all mediums and those who consult the spirits of the dead. Mediums, people, the crystal balls, the people that think they're talking to the dead. The Bible strictly forbids necromancy, mediums, all this kind of stuff is absolutely forbidden. You can read Leviticus, and there's multiple other places. So, anyway, verse 4, the Philistines set up their camp at Shunem, and Saul gathered all the army of Israel and camped at Gilboa. Verse 5, when Saul saw the vast Philistine army, he became frantic with fear. Remember last time same thing. He asked the Lord what he should do, but the Lord refused to answer him either by dreams or by sacred lots or by the prophets. Verse 7, Saul then said to his advisors, "Find a woman who is a medium, so I can go and ask her what to do." His advisors replied, "There is a medium at Endor." So Saul, verse 8, disguised himself by wearing ordinary clothing instead of his royal robes. Then he went to the woman's home at night, accompanied by 2 of his men. "I have to talk to a man who has died," he said. "Will you call up his spirit for me?" This whole necromancy, there's another word for it, like trying to communicate with the dead, is forbidden. I want to tell you something. The Bible clearly says to be absent with the bodies, present with the Lord. Well, if you're saved, right? But listen, if you think, and I know some people think they're talking to a dead relative, and I know it's sweet and it's like you miss them, and I respect that, but if they're talking back to you, if you're talking to what you think is a relative, scripturally, you might be talking to something else. I'm just saying. I'm just letting y'all know. I'm just warning you. That's just me keeping it real. 1 Samuel 28:9. "Are you trying to get me killed?" the woman demanded. "You know that Saul has outlawed all the mediums and all who consult the spirits of the dead." Those are little spirits, not Holy Spirit. "Why are you settling a trap for me?" Verse 10, but Saul took an oath in the name of the Lord and promised, "As surely as the Lord lives, nothing bad will happen to you for doing this." Verse 11, finally the woman said, "Well, whose spirit do you want me to call up?" "Call up Samuel," Saul replied. When the woman saw Samuel, she screamed, "You've deceived me. You are Saul." Verse 13, "Don't be afraid," the king told her. "What do you see?" "I see a god," little g, "coming up out of the earth," she said. Little g. There's parallels here. Pay attention to this. Circle it. Verse 14, "What does he look like?" Saul asked. "He is an old man wrapped in a robe," she replied. Saul realized it was Samuel, and he fell to the ground before him. Wow. Verse 15, "Why have you disturbed me by calling me back?" Samuel asked Saul. "Because I am in deep trouble," Saul replied. "The Philistines are at war with me, and God has left me and won't reply by prophets or dreams. So I have called for you to tell me what to do." That's very interesting. Verse 16, but Samuel replied, "Why ask me, since the Lord has left you and has become your enemy?" Verse 17, "The Lord has done just as he said he would. He has torn the kingdom from you. He has torn the kingdom from you and given it to your rival, David. The Lord has done this to you today because you refused to carry out his fierce anger against the Amalekites. What's more, the Lord will hand you and the army of Israel over to the Philistines tomorrow, and you and your sons will be here with me. The Lord will bring down the entire army of Israel in defeat." Verse 20, Saul fell full length on the ground. Full length typically means somebody's dying. That's when they get buried. I'm just letting you know that's what it's. And like, I'm not saying he's dying. I'm just saying that's kind of a death sentence, if you will. Saul fell full length on the ground, paralyzed with fright because of Samuel's words. He was also faint with hunger, for he had eaten nothing all day and all night. I'm not saying he died. I'm just saying that's a posture of death when you hear that mentioned, or relating to, pointing to something. When the woman saw how distraught he was, she said, "Sir, I obeyed your command at the risk of my life. Now do what I say, and let me give you a little something to eat, so you can regain your strength for the trip back." Verse 23. But Saul refused to eat anything. Then his advisors joined the woman in urging him to eat, so he finally yielded and got up from the ground and sat on the couch. Verse 24, the woman had been fattening a calf, so she hurried out and killed it. She took some flour, kneaded it into dough, and baked unleavened bread. And unleavened obviously is without sin. It's not puffed up. 1 Corinthians 13 talks about what love is. It's kind, it's patient. It's not puffed up. That leaven represents sin being puffed up. Does that make sense? Because it's really contamination. It comes from something else. The fact that yeast rises is actually, well, I'm not even going to get into that, but just a little bit of that yeast gets in fresh dough. It'll cause it to get puffed up. You see what I'm saying? That's good right there. The woman had been fattening it. Well, I just read that. So, verse 25. She brought the meal to Saul and his advisors, so they ate it. Then they went out into the night. So, chapter 29, Philistines reject David. Verse 1, the entire Philistine army now mobilized at Aphek, and the Israelites camped at the spring of Jezreel. And the Philistine rulers were leading out their troops in groups of hundreds and thousands. David and his men marched at the rear with King Achish. Verse 3, but the Philistine commanders demanded, what are these Hebrews doing here? And Achish told them, this is David, the servant of King Saul of Israel. He's been with me for years, and I've never found a single fault in him from the day he arrived until today. That sounds a lot like Jesus, even though they're not the same. It's like, it reminds me of almost like a Christophany, maybe. An appearance of Jesus before his body. It's called a Christophany. I don't know. Verse 4, but the Philistine commanders were angry. Send him back to the town you've given him. They demanded. He can't go into battle with us. What if he turns against us in battle and becomes our adversary? Is there any better way for him to reconcile himself with his master than by handing our heads over to him? Verse 5. Isn't this the same David about whom the women of Israel sing in their dances? Saul has killed his thousands and David his 10,000s. Remember that? It was mentioned 2 other times, I believe. And Saul was not happy about, whoa. How come David has tens of thousands? Like, why do I only have 1,000? I don't like thousands. I don't like that. Verse 5. Isn't this the same David? I just read that. So verse 6. So Achish finally summoned David and said to him, I swear by the Lord that you have been a trustworthy ally. I think you should go with me into battle, for I've never found a single flaw in you from the day you arrived until today. But the other Philistine rulers won't hear of it. Verse 7. Please don't upset them, but go back quietly. What have I done to deserve this treatment? David demanded. What have you ever found in your servant that I can't go and fight the enemies of my lord the king? But Achish insisted, as far as I'm concerned, you're as perfect as an angel of God, but the Philistine commanders are afraid to have you with them in the battle. Verse 10, now get up early in the morning and leave with your men as soon as it gets light. Same thing he told Abraham, basically. So David, verse 11, and his men headed back into the land of the Philistines while the Philistine army went on to Jezreel. This is good. Chapter 30. Sorry. All right, I had to baptize my tonsils. Now we're going to hear about David's wives. They're captured. How did I know that? Well, I just read the title up there on top. Anyway, 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 1. 3 days later, you see 3 is a lot in Scripture. 3 days later, in the Bible grade, it's fun. 3 days later, when David and his men arrived home at their town of Ziklag, they found that the Amalekites had made a raid into the Negev and the Ziklag. They had crushed Ziklag and burned it to the ground. Verse 2. They had carried off the women and children, and everyone else, but without killing anyone. When David and his men saw the ruins and realized what had happened to their families, they wept until they could weep no more. You know, in that time they had professional mourners. Believe it or not, they got paid to mourn, well, whatever money they used. David's 2 wives, Ahinoam from Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal and Carmel, were among those captured. Verse 6. David was now in great danger because all his men were very bitter about losing their sons and daughters, and they began to talk of stoning him. But David found strength in the Lord his God. Isn't that awesome? David was awesome. David's just awesome, period. Sorry, what do you do? Of course, Daniel's pretty cool too. Anyway, then he said, verse 7, to Abiathar, his priest, bring me the ephod. The Abiathar brought it. Verse 8, then David asked the Lord, should I chase after this band of raiders? Will I catch them? And the Lord told him, yes, go after them. You will surely recover everything that was taken from you. Verse 9, so David and his 600 men set out. And they came to the brook Besor, and 600 has been mentioned multiple times too. Numbers are important. Gematria is another thing that's important. Verse 10, 1 Samuel 30:10. But 200 of the men were too exhausted to cross the brook. So David continued the pursuit with 400 men. Along the way, they found an Egyptian man in a field and brought him to David. They gave him some bread to eat and water to drink. Verse 12, they also gave him part of a fig cake and 2 clusters of raisins, for he hadn't had anything to eat or drink for 3 days and nights. 3 days and nights. Before long, his strength returned. Verse 13, to whom do you belong and where do you come from? David asked. I'm an Egyptian, the slave of Amalekite, he replied. My master abandoned me 3 days ago because I was sick. Just like the enemy. You think he's your friend, but then he leaves you hanging after he takes your life away. That's how he is. We were on our way back from raiding the Kerethites in the Negev, the territory of Judah and the land of Caleb. We had just burned Ziklag. Verse 15. Will you lead me to this band of raiders? David asked. The young men replied, if you take an oath in God's name that you will not kill me or give me back to my master, then I will guide you to them. So then he led David to them. And they found the Amalekites spread out across the fields, eating and drinking and dancing with joy because of the vast amount of plunder they had taken from the Philistines in the land of Judah. David and his men rushed in among them and slaughtered them throughout that night and the entire next day until evening. None of the Amalekites escaped except 400 young men who fled on camels. This is good, you guys. I'm telling you, it's just getting good. It's just getting good now. Verse 18. David got back everything the Amalekites had taken, and he rescued his 2 wives. Nothing was missing, small or great, son or daughter, nor anything else that had been taken. David brought everything back. He also recovered all the flocks and herds, and his men drove them ahead of the other livestock. This plunder belongs to David, they said. Verse 21, then David returned to the brook Besor, and met up with the 200 men who had been left behind because they were too exhausted to go with him. They went out to meet David and his men, and David greeted them joyfully. Verse 22, but some evil troublemakers, of course, they're always out there. Some evil troublemakers among David's men said, they didn't go with us, so they can't have any of the plunder we recovered. Give them their wives and children and tell them to be gone. But David said, no, my brothers, don't be selfish with what the Lord has given us. He has kept us safe and helped us defeat the band of raiders that attacked us. Verse 24, who will listen when you talk like this? We share and share alike, those who go to battle and those who guard the equipment. From then on, David made this a decree and regulation for Israel. And it is still followed today. When he arrived at Ziklag, David sent part of the plunder to the elders of Judah, who were his friends. Here's a present for you taken from the Lord's enemies, he said. The gifts were sent to the people of the following towns David had visited: Bethel, Ramoth, Negev, and Zatir, Aurora, Shipmoth, Eshtemoa, Rakal, the towns of the Jerahmeelites, the towns of the Kenites. Wow, man. Hormah, Borshan, Atek, Hebron, and all the other places David and his men had visited. Chapter 31, last chapter in Samuel chapter 1. Last chapter. It's the 31st chapter of 1 Samuel, and then we're going to move on to 2 Samuel. We're going to go to chapter 3 of 2 Samuel. Moving on. This is the death of Saul. Oh, no. 1 Samuel chapter 31, verse 1. Now the Philistines attacked Israel, and the men of Israel fled before them. Many were slaughtered on the slopes of Mount Gilboa. The Philistines closed in on Saul and his sons, and they killed 3 of his sons, Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua. The fighting grew very fierce around Saul, and the Philistine archers caught up with him and wounded him severely. Saul groaned to his armor-bearer, "Take your sword and kill me before these pagan Philistines come to run me through and taunt and torture me." But his armor-bearer was afraid and would not do it. So Saul took his own sword and fell on it. Suicide, folks. Man, that's rough. That's rough. Same thing that happened to the old betrayal, the guy that betrayed, Judah. Funny, Jesus has the book of Jude, the 65th book before Revelation's Jude. That's actually Jesus' brother. His name's actually Judas, but you can, for obvious reasons, Judas is scary. It ruined that for him, so he kind of avoided that name, I think. Anyway, verse 5, 1 Samuel 31:5. When his armor bearer realized that Saul was dead, he fell on his own sword and died beside the king. Wow. So he took his life too, because I mean, that's like, wow, that's back to back. Verse 6. So Saul, his 3 sons, his armor bearer, and his troops all died together that same day. Did you hear that? Everybody in that group died. Verse 7. When the Israelites on the other side of the Jezreel Valley and beyond the Jordan saw that the Israeli army had fled and that Saul and his sons were dead, they abandoned their towns and fled. So the Philistines moved in and occupied their towns. Somebody's out, the new one's in, just like that. I know relationships like that. I don't know. Not mine. I love my wife. She's awesome. Verse 8. The next day, when the Philistines went out to strip the dead, they found the bodies of Saul and his 3 sons on Mount Gilboa. So they cut off Saul's head and stripped off his armor. Then they proclaimed the good news of Saul's death in their pagan temple and to the people throughout the land of Philistia. Verse 10. They placed his armor in the temple of the Ashtoreths, and they fastened his body to the wall of the city of Bethshan. Can you imagine seeing this stuff back in the... You think stuff's gruesome nowadays. They used to do the gruesome stuff back then. You had your Dahmers back then. My goodness. Verse 11. But when the people of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all their mighty warriors traveled through the night to Bethshan and took the bodies of Saul and his sons down from the wall. They brought them to Jabesh, where they burned the bodies. Verse 13. Then they took their bones and buried them beneath the tamarisk tree at Jabesh. And they fasted for 7 days. Boy, there's so much there, you guys, if you just study it. That is the close of 1 Samuel. We're moving on to 2 Samuel. So, we're going to 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 1. David hears of Saul's death. After the death of Saul, David returned from his victory over the... So, the first chapter is, Saul's death. It's over with. After the death of Saul, David returned from his victory over the Amalekites and spent 2 days in Ziklag. On the 3rd day, a man arrived from Saul's army camp. He had torn his clothes and put dirt on his head to show that he was in mourning. He fell to the ground before David in deep respect. I told you guys this happened a few times already in the Old Testament, previous books. Job does this. He puts stuff on his head. It's a type of mourning. That's what the Jewish people did. There was another thing they would do where they would tear their clothes and mess their hair up, but that's another story. Anyway, that was a type of mourning, to throw dust or ashes or dirt on their head. So he had torn his clothes and put dirt on his head to show he was in mourning. He fell on the ground before David in deep respect. Where have you come from? David asked. I escaped from the Israelite camp, the man replied. What happened? David demanded. Tell me how the battle went, the man replied. Our entire army fled from the battle. Many of the men are dead, and Saul and his son Jonathan are also dead. How do you know Saul and Jonathan are dead? David demanded of the young man. The man answered, I happened to be on Mount Gilboa, and there was Saul leaning on a spear with the enemy chariots and charioteers closing in on him. When he turned and saw me, he cried out for me to come to him. How can I help? I asked him. He responded, Who are you? I'm an Amalekite, I told him. Then he begged me, come over here and put me out of my misery, for I am in terrible pain and want to die. So I killed him. The Amalekite told David, for I knew he couldn't live. Then I took his crown and his armband, and I have brought them here to you, my lord. David, verse 11, and his men tore their clothes in sorrow when they heard the news. Verse 12, they mourned and wept and fasted all day for Saul and his son Jonathan and the Lord's army and the nation of Israel, because they had died by the sword that day. Live by the sword, die by the sword, guys. Remember that. Live by the sword, die by the sword. That's not good, man. Wow. That's rough. Man, the Bible's rough. I'm going to tell you, there's some stuff in here that's hard to hear. I want to get to the Gospels. Can't wait. 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 13. Then David said to the young men who had brought the news, where are you from? And he replied, I'm a foreigner, an Amalekite, who lives in your land. Why were you not afraid to kill the Lord's anointed one? David asked. Then David said to one of his men, kill him. So the man thrust his sword into the Amalekite and killed him. You have condemned yourself, David said, for you yourself confess that you killed the Lord's anointed one. Verse 17. Then David composed a funeral song for Saul and Jonathan, and he commanded that it be taught to the people of Judah. It is known as the Song of the Bow, and it's recorded in the book of Jasher. So here's an example of an extra-canonical book. It's not in this book. There are a few books that are referenced. They're real books, but they're not biblically inspired, canonized. They didn't happen during the lifetime of the apostles. They had Egyptian. There's a lot of reasons why the apocryphal books are not in the Bible. You have to do a study on that. Here's the point. The book of Jasher is one of the apocrypha books, just like Jude, the second to last book of our Bible, mentions the book of Enoch. Enoch's also mentioned in the genealogies of Genesis 6. Genesis 5, I believe, and he's 6th or 7th in that genealogy. I can't remember which. Anyway, so it's known as the Song of the Bow, and it's recorded in the book of Jasher. So that's interesting to look up that song. I want to actually look it up. We'll go ahead and make a note here. I'm just going to go back and look it up. Awesome. Okay, and he commanded that it be taught to the people of Judah. It is known as the Song of the Bow, and it's recorded in the book of Jasher. So your pride and joy, O Israel, lies dead on the hills. Oh, how the mighty heroes have fallen. Don't announce the news in Gath. Don't proclaim it in the streets of Ashkelon, or the daughters of the Philistines will rejoice, and the pagans will laugh in triumph. O mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew or rain upon you, nor fruitful fields producing offerings of grain. For there the shield of the mighty heroes was defiled. The shield of Saul will no longer be anointed with oil. Verse 22. The bow of Jonathan was powerful, and the sword of Saul did its mighty work. They shed the blood of their enemies and pierced the bodies of mighty heroes. Verse 23. How beloved and gracious were Saul and Jonathan. They were together in life and in death. They were swifter than eagles, stronger than lions. O women of Israel, weep for Saul, for he has dressed you in luxurious scarlet clothing and garments decorated with gold. Oh, how the mighty heroes had fallen in battle. Jonathan lies dead on the hills. How I weep for you, my brother Jonathan. Oh, how much I loved you, and your love for me was deep, deeper than the love of women. Don't take that the wrong way. This is a natural agape love. I think it's defined agape. I did not look that one up, but I believe it is. I'm not sure, not for sure. Verse 27. Oh, how the mighty heroes have fallen, stripped of their weapons, they lie dead. Chapter 2. 2 Samuel chapter 2, verse 1. After this, David asked the Lord, should I move back to one of the towns of Judah? Yes, the Lord replied. And David asked, which town should I go to? To Hebron? The Lord answered. Oh, to Hebron, the Lord answered. That's better. Context is everything. Verse 2. David's two wives were Ahinoam, is that right? From Jezreel, and Abigail, the widow of Nabal from Carmel. So David and his wives and his men and their families all moved to Judah, and they settled in the villages near Hebron. Is that interesting that David moves to the tribe that Jesus is from? Huh. Yeah, so his men and his family, and his men and their families all moved to Judah, and they settled in the villages near Hebron. Verse 4, then the men of Judah came to David and anointed him king over the people of Judah. So now David is the king of Judah. So you guys are watching the whole process. When you get to the book of Acts, it's going to give us the whole process of the church birth. You get to the book of Revelation, it's going to give you the church, the history of the church as a whole through all the years, through the thousands of years. So, verse 4, then the men of Judah came to David and anointed him king over the people. I just read this. Anyway, verse 5, he sent them this message. May the Lord bless you for being so loyal to your master Saul and giving him a decent burial. Verse 6, may the Lord be loyal to you in return and reward you with his unfailing love, and I, too, will reward you for what you have done. Now that Saul is dead, I ask you to be my strong and loyal subjects like the people of Judah who have anointed me as their new king. So, verse 8, it doesn't say so, I added that. But Abner, son of Ner, the commander of Saul's army, had already gone to Mahanaim with Saul's son Ishbosheth. Wow, Ishbosheth. That's a tough one. Verse 9. There he proclaimed Ishbosheth king over Gilead, Jezreel, Ephraim, Benjamin, and the land of the Asherites, and all the rest of Israel. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years. There's 40 again. That means fulfillment, quarantine. Was 40 years old when he became king, and he ruled from Mahanaim for 2 years. Meanwhile, the people of Judah remained loyal to David. Verse 11. David made Hebron his capital, and he ruled as king of Judah for 7.5 years. One day, verse 12, Abner led Ishbosheth's troops from Mahanaim to Gibeon. Verse 13, about the same time, Joab, son of Zeruiah, led David's troops out and met them at the pool of Gibeon. The two groups sat down there facing each other from the opposite sides of the pool. Then Abner suggested to Joab, let's have a few of our warriors fight hand to hand here in front of us. All right, Joab agreed. So 12 men were chosen to fight from each side, 12 men of Benjamin's representing Ishbosheth, son of Saul, and 12 representing David. Verse 16, each one grabbed his opponent by the hair and thrust his sword into the other side so that all of them died. So this place at Gibeon has been known ever since as the field of swords. You see how things are named? The Hebrew is amazing. Verse 17, a fierce battle followed that day, and Abner and all the men of Israel were defeated by the forces of David. Verse 18, Joab, Abishai, and Ashahel, the three sons of Zeruiah, were among David's forces that day. Ashahel could run like a gazelle. Verse 19, and he began chasing Abner. He pursued him relentlessly, not stopping for anything. When Abner looked back and saw him coming, he called out, is that you, Ashahel? Yes, it is, he replied. Verse 21, go fight someone else, Abner warned. Take on one of the younger men and strip him of his weapons. But Ashahel kept right on chasing Abner. Verse 22, again, Abner shouted to him, get away from here. I don't want to kill you. How could I ever face your brother Joab again? But Asahel refused to turn back, so Abner thrust the butt end of his spear through Ashahel's stomach, and the spear came out through his back. He stumbled to the ground and died there, and everyone who came by that spot stopped and stood still when they saw Ashahel lying there. Asahel. Whatever. All right. These words are tough. Verse 24, when Joab and Abishai found out what had happened, they set out after Abner. The sun was going down as they arrived at the hill of Ammah near Giah, along the road to the wilderness of Gibeon. Verse 25, Abner's troops from the tribe of Benjamin regrouped there at the top of the hill to take a stand. Verse 26, Abner shouted down to Joab, must we always be killing each other? Don't you realize that bitterness is the only result? When will you call off your men from chasing the Israelite brothers? Then Joab said, God only knows what would have happened if you hadn't spoken. For we would have chased you all night if necessary. So Joab blew the ram's horn, and his men stopped chasing the troops of Israel. Circle that. That ram's horn has parallels. Passover and some other stuff. There's parallels here. There's prophecy. Take some time to circle these and look some of these up. Verse 29, all that night Abner and his men retreated through the Jordan Valley. They crossed the Jordan River, traveling all through the morning, and didn't stop until they arrived at Mahanaim. Meanwhile, verse 30, Joab and his men also returned home. When Joab counted his casualties, he discovered that only 19 men were missing in addition to Asahel. Why am I struggling with that name so much? Asahel, whatever. Verse 31, but 360 of Abner's men had been killed, all from the tribe of Benjamin. Verse 32, Joab and his men took Asahel's body to Bethlehem and buried him there in his father's tomb. Then he traveled all night and reached Hebron at daybreak. Chapter 3, last chapter of the night, and then tomorrow we pick up 2 Samuel chapter 4 and go through chapter 16 in 2 Samuel. But tonight, this is our last chapter. You guys ready? Okay. Chapter 3, Abner joins David. 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1. That was the beginning of a long war between those who were loyal to Saul and those loyal to David. As time passed, David became stronger and stronger, while Saul's dynasty became weaker and weaker. These are the sons who were born to David in Hebron. The oldest was Amnon, whose mother was Ahinoam from Jezreel. Here we go. The second was Daniel, whose mother was Abigail, the widow of Nabal from Carmel. The third was Absalom, whose mother was Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. The fourth was Adonijah, whose mother was Haggith. The fifth was Shephatiah, whose mother was Abital. The sixth was Ithream, whose mother was Eglah, David's wife. These sons were all born to David in Hebron. Verse 6. As the war between the house of Saul and the house of David went on, Abner became a powerful leader among those loyal to Saul. One day, Ishbosheth, Saul's son, accused Abner of sleeping with one of his father's concubines. That's just a prostitute. It's illegitimate. It's not a wife. A woman named Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, whatever. Verse 8, Abner was furious. Am I some Judean dog to be kicked around like this? He shouted. After all I've done for your father Saul and his family and friends by not handing you over to David, is this my reward that you find fault with me about this woman? May God strike me and may God strike me and even kill me if I don't do everything I can to help David get what the Lord has promised him. Verse 10, I'm going to take Saul's kingdom and give it to David. I will establish the throne of David, Jesus comes from there, over Israel as well as Judah, all the way from Dan into the north of Beersheba in the south. Now we're starting to get to modern day Israel here. It's working its way forward. Verse 11, Ishbosheth didn't dare say another word because he was afraid of what Abner might do. Then Abner sent messengers to David saying, doesn't the entire land belong to you? Make a solemn pact with me and I will help you turn over all of Israel to you. I will help turn over all Israel to you. Verse 13, all right, David replied, but I will not negotiate with you unless you bring back my wife Michal, Saul's daughter, when you come. Verse 14, David then sent this message to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, give me back my wife Michal, for I bought her with the lives of 100 Philistines. Verse 15, so Ishbosheth took Michal away from her husband, Palti, son of Laish. Palti followed along behind her as far as Bahurim, weeping as he went. Then Abner told him, go back home. So Palti returned. Meanwhile, Abner had consulted with the elders of Israel. For some time now, he told them, you have wanted to make David your king. Now is the time, for the Lord has said, I have chosen David to save my people, Israel, from the hands of the Philistines and from all their other enemies. Abner also spoke with the men of Benjamin. Then he went to Hebron to tell David that all the people of Israel and Benjamin had agreed to support him. Verse 20, when Abner and 20 of his men came to Hebron, David entertained them with a great feast. Verse 21, then Abner said to David, let me go and call an assembly. I don't know if they use the word ecclesia here, but I know that the church, the meaning of that's ecclesia, it's a gathering, it's a people. I don't know if they use that word here or not, but I'm assuming they do. I haven't looked it up for some reason. So, so Abner then said to David, let me go and call an assembly of people to support my lord the king. They will make a covenant with you to make you their king, and you will rule over everything your heart's desires. So David sent Abner safely on his way. But just after David had sent Abner away in safety, Joab and some of David's troops returned from a raid, bringing much plunder with them. When Joab arrived, he was told that Abner had just been visiting the king and had been sent away in safety. Joab rushed to the king, verse 24, and demanded, what have you done? What do you mean by letting Abner get away? You know perfectly well that he came to spy on you and find out everything you're doing. Joab then left David, verse 26, and sent messengers. Listen to this. To catch up with Abner, asking him to return. They found him at the well of Sirah, and brought him back through David, though David knew nothing about it. Verse 27. When Abner arrived back at Hebron, Joab took him inside at the gateway, as if to speak with him privately. But then he stabbed Abner in the stomach and killed him in revenge for killing his brother Ashiel. Wow. Bible's violent. Verse 28. When David heard about it, he declared, I vow by the Lord that I and my kingdom are forever innocent of this crime against Abner, son of Ner. Joab and his family are the guilty ones. May the family of Joab be cursed in every generation with a man who has open sores or leprosy, or who walks on crutches, or dies by the sword, or begs for food. Geez, don't hold back, buddy. My goodness. So Joab and his brother Abishai killed Abner because Abner had killed their brother Ashiel at the battle of Gibeon. David mourns Abner. Then David, verse 31, said to Joab and all those who were with him, tear your clothes and put on burlap. Mourn for Abner. And King David himself walked behind the procession to the grave. They buried Abner in Hebron, and the king and all the people wept at his gravesite. Then the king sang this funeral song for Abner. Should Abner have died as fools die? Your hands were not bound, your feet were not chained. No, you were murdered, the victim of a wicked plot. All the people wept again for Abner. David had refused to eat anything on the day of the funeral, and now everyone begged him to eat. But David had made a vow, saying, may God strike me and even kill me if I eat anything before sundown. This pleased the people very much. In fact, everything the king did pleased them. So everyone in Judah and all Israel understood that David was not responsible for Abner's murder. Last two verses for tonight. 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 38. Then King David said to his officials, don't you realize that a great commander has fallen today in Israel? Last verse. And even though I'm the anointed king, these two sons of Zeruiah, Joab and Abishai, are too strong for me to control. So may the Lord repay these evil men for their evil deeds.